Welcome to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals, experience, and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. And we believe all investments have merit, all investments have relevance, and all investments have their time and place depending on you, your objectives, and your goals. My name is Seth Krussman, and I'm joined here once again with John Ryder and Ben Brayshaw. How are you guys today?
Good morning.
Good morning, Seth.
We are glad to have you listening to Money on Tap. And if you're looking to sit down with an advisor and start making some of the right steps towards your financial goals, we welcome the opportunity to do that with you. And you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook at Money on Tap, 3D Investing. On today's show, we're going to spend the bulk of our show talking about the power of compound interest, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's right. This show is for those of you in our audience who feel behind the game a little bit and know they need to get into the game now, get saving for the future. There are many of you out there who over the years have taken a very casual approach to saving for the future. And what you don't want to do is wake up in a few years and realize you're even further behind. So on today's show, we're going to talk about the power of compound interest and how it can work for you going forward. But before we get to that, it's time for Money in the News, or Money on the News. There it is, folks. That newsy intro to dive into our recent headlines, getting you everything you need to know while hanging out at the proverbial water cooler.
You know, Seth, during this portion of the show, we discuss timely and relevant items that are in the media. It may be entertaining, it may be interesting, it may be funny, it may be sad, it may even be a little instructional, but it's always going to have to do with money. It could be your money, it could be your family's money, it could be your neighbor's money, it could be your boss's money, your favorite athlete's money. It could be any story having to do with money. And today we're going to talk about a story that is in the news surrounding General Electric. Now, if anyone has been near their TV or reading the paper, they're seeing some news about General Electric, and that is that General Electric, Boston-based 125-year-old conglomerate, said it is cutting the number of seats on its board as part of what its chief executive called a reset year in 2018. GE will also be slicing 25% of staff from the home office. So this is a company that's been around for a long time, and one of the big deals that's going on with GE right now is that GE shares are down, biggest decline since the housing recession after a turnaround plan was unveiled. And this turnaround plan unveiled has to do with their dividend. And GE has always done a great job of paying out a dividend to its employees and to its shareholders. Right now, it was 24 cents a share that they're paying out, and now it's only 12 cents a share. So it's really having a big restructuring that's going on. And for people that are relying on their dividends coming in from GE, well, they may have to look elsewhere to fulfill that income. So General Electric really has a lot of changes, and the new CEO on board is a guy named John Flannery. John Flannery just took over as the CEO of GE here back in August, and he's just saying, hey, we need to make some big changes here, and it's planning a renewed focus when it comes to healthcare, aviation, and energy. In fact, he actually apologized, believe it or not, on an investor day a few weeks ago, and he apologized for the company's performance, and he said that GE should be more focused. And as a result of all this news coming out about restructuring and all that, the shares plunged more than 8% back on that day.
So, that was a huge decline. I mean,
absolutely.
That's was that the largest decline since 2009? I think I read in the article. I think when you break it down, GE's been around for so long.
125 years.
Yeah, and I remember years and years ago, I actually helped a client with his mother's GE stock, and she had some from the early 1900s, and her husband had bought them and so forth, and it was 2 shares here, 4 shares here, and
Now
so
she had
forth.
$1 billion.
Yeah. No, it was a few million.
Was it
dollars.
really?
Yeah,
Wow,
it
wow.
was when all the splits and
Wow.
everything like that.
Amazing.
Yeah, taking in the original stock certificates. That was quite a interesting day of my life.
Sure.
And
Young stockbroker.
he's like, how much do you think this is worth? I was like, I don't even want to think about. I don't want to think about all the splits this thing's gone through since your dad bought these for your mom. So, but GE has had that long lasting we pay a dividend story. And back in 2009, I think if I remember correctly, they turned off their dividend, and that was like a big shocker in their story, in their storyline as a company, and that was a big deal.
What's interesting, too, there's a lot of folks out there that recommend GE stock for their clients. We're not doing that today, but one of the big names out there is Jim Cramer. Everyone's heard about Jim Cramer, the crazy guy that goes off and he manages big endowments and that kind of stuff. And he said on, I think this is on CNBC, he said, my investment in GE was one of the biggest mistakes of my career. And basically he was not too bullish on it. But it's interesting enough, too, his charitable, he has a charitable trust in that owns the stock. And last month when he, when speculation about the dividend cut and some sort of restructuring were recirculating, Cramer had said, rarely have I felt this stupid. Now, if I can say it like Cramer, rarely have I felt this stupid while questioning what investors should do with the stock. He said, I don't want to talk against my investment, but I don't know how it's possible anyone thinks it should be worth $20, Cramer said on Monday. There's just a lot that's wrong. It should be 17 times earnings stock, he added. GE said it now sees adjusted earnings for the year ahead of between $1 per share and $1.07 per share. So,
well, I think it's funny. I've had people come into the office, Seth. They'll be like, "Well, I listen to Cramer all the time, and I just do what he does." Right. I've had people tell me that. I mean, they've been honest about it, and that's fine. Yeah. I find him, somewhat entertaining at times, and it's kind of funny to, hear him. What's funny is when you hear him mention stocks that, we're working with long before he actually gets there, it's kind of, I've had that happen where I've seen CEOs that I've chatted with. But, I think ultimately, every broker is going to have a good idea here and there, and some will have more good ideas. I think, I just wouldn't just write GE off just yet, but, it's an interesting, interesting opinion by Cramer on that. And I wouldn't be so hard on himself, to be honest with you.
They have remade themselves multiple times. I mean, this is in their model. This is nothing new for GE to go and basically say we've gotten over diversified, I guess, and we've got our hands in too many different buckets, and now we just need to kind of simplify our model back into doing something exceptionally well. And then take it from there.
That's exactly what you were saying, John Flanner, the CEO. Yeah. Hey, we just need to refocus again, and refocus on hey, what we're making money at.
And every company goes through growth and they branch off and they develop different areas and they get stronger in something, and then they may sell that off or whatever, and then they kind of come back to their roots, and then they pruning the tree is a healthy thing to do in any scenario, including a business. I mean, we've done it from time to time too. It just is what it is.
So, did you see this? That Bill Gates wants to build a futuristic.
Wait! You missed the best part about John Flannery.
Oh, Seth wanted to skip over that because he doesn't care. He doesn't care about Boston. General Electric,
Johnny boy.
Yeah, General Electric is based out of Boston. Doesn't care. Seth doesn't care a whole lot about that. But what's the fact here? What's the big deal about John Flannery, the new CEO?
He's a huge Red Sox fan.
Huge Red Sox fan.
Oh, guys,
I thought it was that he had 3 kids.
And he named his dog Mookie Betts.
Yeah, he's the Boston Red Sox right fielder. How good is that?
This guy's a genius.
It's funny because the guy was from Chicago, but just relocated to Boston. I don't know if he really was a Red Sox fan or not, but maybe he felt he had to name his dog Mookie Betts to fit in better with the Boston business world. I don't know, but. Okay, what were you saying, Seth? You were saying something about this poor guy, Bill Gates.
Money in the news.
I'd bet on a Boston fan any day.
Bill Gates wants to build a futuristic community in Arizona. Now, a group associated with Gates Investment Company has invested $80 million in what is a high-tech planned development outside of Phoenix. And this community in Belmont was designed around high-speed networks, autonomous vehicles, high-speed digital networks, digital centers, new manufacturing technologies, and autonomous logistic hubs. So the future is moving toward us even faster maybe than we thought there.
Yeah, kind of crazy when you see these guys. And I guess it's not directly Bill Gates that's doing that, but it's there's a company called, it says here in the article, it's unclear how much former Microsoft CEO Gates, who owns Belmont's parent company, Cascade Investment, will be involved in the effort. But they're planning to make it a large city, and it's going to be similar to the size of nearby Tempe, Arizona, and that has a population of 182,000. So I don't know if this is going to be like the George Jetson type of community or what, but it sounds like it's very, very technology friendly, and that's really what they're seeking to do, and maybe doing a lot of testing, that type of thing, to see how they can expand that. Because when Bill Gates is talking about something, it's not necessarily it's going to be one small little city he's working in. That's probably a pattern for what he's planning on later on.
Well, they probably need a city test facility kind of thing,
right.
And they're saying, hey, listen, let's go live with something and see if we have a place where we can test this stuff and put the infrastructure in place. And I think that's a little bit of genius right there.
It's funny. It says it's designed as a model neighborhood for the 21st century with reduced pollution, shortened commutes, safer streets, and better weather.
They're not moving anyone from Rhode Island there, Johnny.
That's probably not. Probably not. But it says, hey, transportation will be designed around shared electric vehicles, walking, and biking. More flexible zoning will blend commercial, industrial, and residential zones. So,
I wonder what kind of check mark about whether or not you're allowed to live there.
Right.
Like you're going to have to get screened at some level, right? I mean, if you don't know how to use, an Android, you're not in.
Yeah, you're out. Yeah, you're out. I'm out. I'm not going there.
If you still own a flip phone, you're not going to be a resident.
That's right. So check this out, guys. Though, Seth, this is interesting. Only a week after this announcement, Saudi Arabia announced plans to invest $500 billion in a new global hub meant to push the boundaries of innovation and exemplify the future of civilization. Boy, it sounds like utopia.
There's a little disparity between that 80 million and that 500 billion, isn't there?
Gates thought he had money until the Saudi Arabia princes put down their money.
They were like, you think you got money? I got money.
I'll show you money.
Wow.
Bill Gates would be like, yeah, you can keep throwing at it, but it ain't going to work.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head that there's going to be multiple endeavors out there. Alphabet committed $50 million to an initial phase in Toronto neighborhood. And I think that this is something that, really is going to, like you said, Ben, is going to have to become kind of a test bed because you can only do so much in a lab. After that, it's like it has to become a real world and environmental type of a test bed for.
You need a place where, these automatic cars, could stop in front of a child crossing the street.
Right.
Hey, speaking of that, not to get off on a tangent,
I didn't mean to go there.
Aren't those? Well, we're there now. Isn't that amazing? Like these Teslas. My son took a ride in a Tesla. This guy can do it's $100,000 car. This guy can do his office work on the way to the office. He's looking down and on his computer and he's doing paperwork and all that while his car is self-driving him into the office. This is in Illinois. Crazy. I mean, I can't even imagine that. I know, Ben, you could probably do that without the Tesla.
Yeah, I don't need a Tesla to do that.
You don't need a Tesla.
It takes a lot more abilities to do it without the Tesla.
That's true.
We're going to take a quick break, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. This is Money on Tap. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ben Brayshaw, one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. If you have questions when it comes to your retirement and are looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group. In today's volatile stock market, we can help you plan to find your successful retirement solution. Am I saving enough? Am I saving into the right places? Do my investments match my appetite for risk? Do I have a tax strategy that is going to help me keep more of what I earn? How can I maximize my Social Security income? If you are like most people, you are getting closer and closer to your retirement and may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. If you're in retirement, you may be wondering, am I maximizing my income while preserving my estate and caring for my family? We talk about all things financial in what we call three-dimensional investing, putting a plan around your financial future. If you feel that now is the time to start getting the answers to some of these questions for your own situation, give us a call at Brayshaw Financial Group at 855-226-8551. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, we have offices throughout New England and across the country. We would love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation just to meet with us, and we welcome you to our office. Call us at 855-226-8551.
Find out more about three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning with Ben Brayshaw, Seth Krussman, and John Ryder on their weekly radio program, Money on Tap. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group are independent of SagePoint Financial. Now back to Money on Tap with Ben Brayshaw, John Ryder, and Seth Krussman.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook at Money on Tap. Now, our website is www.yourmoneyontap.com. And that's where we warehouse a lot of these concept pieces and some of the past shows that we've done. If you're having something that you would like to go back and take a look at, that's a good place to start. As well as you can find our blog where we have just released the 2018 to-dos for your financial planning. So that's out there for you if you're kind of trying to get a checklist in front of you for what you can be looking forward to in 2018 as you make some progress in your financial plan. So we're talking about the power of compound interest, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And John's going to kick us off here in just a minute, but I did want to also let you know that as you are having some of these ideas kind of percolate to the top of your financial awareness and you have some questions, you can also just pick up the phone and reach us at 855-226-8551. Or if you want to, just send us an email over at the info@yourmoneyontap.com. And if it's something that's an idea that we're going to use on a show here, we've got some gifts, we've got some things that we'd like to appreciate you with. Hats, T-shirts, those kind of things. But we love interacting with you, our listeners, and bringing some of these concept pieces on board and hopefully helping out, not just you, but several other people out there. Because believe it or not, if it is something that you have an interest in, there's a lot of other people probably that are on the same boat. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get going on this. What do you say, John?
Absolutely. So the topic of today's show is the power of compound interest, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we're actually going to start off with a quote. Now, there are many people that might dispute who actually said this.
This is debatable.
But if you went to the internets, as George W. Bush said, you would see that Albert Einstein was credited for this quote. Now, some people, like Ben remembers from his high school history that it was actually Ben Franklin that said this, but I don't know. We'll let it up to the listeners to decide.
Well, we actually took history. We actually took history versus other states, John. So we actually went to school. We didn't go to mob training that Rhode Island offers. Come on, buddy.
Yeah. Forget about it. Forget about it.
We handle all the real history here.
Okay, so Albert Einstein said
this.
this.
We're still wearing leather and hunt. Never mind. All right, good. Keep going.
You got a side holster on there, Seth. I can see it.
There we go. Hey, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. Compound interest is the greatest mathematical discovery of all time. And that, my friends, was from Albert Einstein or Benjamin Franklin or whoever you may believe. In fact, I heard Ben earlier trying to get credit for that quote. I'm not so sure that he should get the credit for it, but anyway. But you know what?
Whatever.
We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to start off with the ugly or the dark side of compound interest because you know what? There is definitely a dark side to compound interest, and that is if you're on the wrong side of it.
Something to say here is now this is something I have skipped over. And as I was reading through this, I was like, this is incredible. How often have I heard, a quote from Albert Einstein or Benjamin Franklin? Both I would say are in that same category of just incredibly brilliant people. Like, holy cow, amazing what these two have contributed to our, and given us these platforms to build off of today. They're just incredible minds. And I just kind of, whatever, Albert Einstein said something, and that's what I kind of treat it as. But the truth is that Albert Einstein brought us the quantum theory of light, the Brownian movement, the special theory of relativity, general theory of relativity. I sometimes have thought maybe I brought up the general theory of relativity. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyways, this is a great mind. And so I want to just kind of give that credit or put that into context as we're saying, hey, Albert Einstein said this about compound interest. So listen up.
He said, "It is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." Now, let me tell you something about the dark side of compound interest, though, because we always like to talk about as advisors, we always like to talk about, well, what happens if your money does this and if your money does that? And it's very cool to see what money can do. If you put $100,000 in there, it's kind of fun to show people, if you were able to achieve this such and such rate of return, this is how much money you'd have. Well, on the very dark side of things here, let's talk about what would happen if you have credit card debt out there and that credit card debt is eating you alive. Here's an example. On the debt side of things, how much does your credit card company earn if you carry just an average of $5,000 credit card balance, paying, say, let's say 22% annual interest rate, compounding monthly for the next 10 years? In your mind, you owe a balance of only $5,000, which is not a huge amount, especially for someone that has employment and you have money coming in. After all, $5,000 is just a quick Disney trip, or maybe just a moderately priced ski trip, or maybe even a week in Hawaii. You think to yourself, how bad could it be? Here is the answer. The answer, including the cost of monthly compounding, is $44,235, or about 9 times what it appears to cost you at face value. So if you are out there and you have a credit card balance of $5,000 and you just kind of let it sit at that amount and your interest rate's around 22%, over time, over the next 10 years, that $5,000 is really costing you $44,235. So the power of compound interest transformed that moderate credit card balance into an extraordinarily expensive purchase. So next time you're making a purchase out there and you know that you don't have the money to pay for what you're buying, realize that you are paying a lot more than you ever could have imagined.
You know, you're probably not gonna hear me say this a lot, but there was one bill that was interesting about credit cards that happened back during the Obama administration, which was the Credit Card Act of 2009. Do you guys remember that?
I don't.
So vaguely, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But it was actually a very interesting bill, and it had a couple different provisions. But what was interesting was it was an effort to really help debt in this country be managed better by people who use credit cards. You know, one of the things that it required was, I don't know if you remember, but credit cards, you know, they offer you the ability to write a check. And your interest rate might be, I don't know, 6, 8, 9% on standard stuff. But if you write a check, it's like 15%.
Usury, yes.
And when you pay your
more
debt,
like that 22, 24.
Yeah.
yeah, when you would pay your debt back, you would pay down the lower interest rate one first.
Those guys are slime bags, aren't they?
I know. Well, anyways, this bill said that actually, and it passed, this bill requires that credit card companies pay off the highest debt item, the highest interest rate item first.
I didn't know that, Ben. Never heard that. Yeah.
So that was one thing. The second thing is that credit cards could do retroactive increases.
Ooh.
There was some loopholes that they could do some
remember that. Yeah.
retroactive.
Yeah, it was
increases.
mind blowing. When they pulled it out, you're like, you think, what? Who in the world can do that legally?
How can you go to work every day
This is
ripping
how-
people off?
This is why Einstein said it's the eighth wonder of the world. I'm surprised it's not the first. I mean, the credit cards are probably number 7 because it's just amazing what these guys can do. But okay, so the second item is that they can't do the retroactive interest rates, and then the third item is that they have to. The minimum balance had to be within a percentage of how to pay off the debt within a period of time. And they had to show you also another payment option, which would help you pay it off in 3 years.
Trying to be helpful to credit card companies?
Yeah, so they had to raise their minimum so you weren't paying below whatever to pay it off over a certain period of time. I don't know all the pieces to it, but it was interesting. It was an entire reform to address debt in our country, which I actually thought was a healthy item, and it was probably one of the highest things supported by both sides here. You know, I mean, they all
transparency.
They all went into this. But then what I really liked about it was, I hate pork on these bills, but sometimes the pork works in our favor. It's not very, well, at least my favor.
Yeah.
But there was an amendment on gun control in national parks. Now, you couldn't take a gun into national parks. That was a big deal. And And George W. Bush, tried to get the ability to take a gun in a national park. And there's people who's like, hey, defend myself, this, that, and the other thing. But anyways, they were able to pass inside this. Tom Coburn, a Republican from Oklahoma, he basically slipped this thing in and got the ability to carry a gun back into national parks, which is an interesting thing. And then that separate amendment, which passed 67-29, I just saw this on the reference here. But that's so I actually like the gun part of that. But the debt issue,
I don't know how we morphed into guns from there, but I guess we are in the live free or die state.
Yes. So but when you actually break down that, I mean, I really think that was about time we got some controls around how lending happens in our country, because when people are spiraling downhill,
it preys on the poorest people, doesn't it?
It does. It preys on the poorest people, and that's not what we do. Our vision and mission as a country has been to lift people up and to care for others, and I do think there's a fairness in lending. I mean, if you're borrowing money from somebody, you should pay them, whatever rate that they agree to. But at the same time, we can't prey on the people who are suffering.
They're down already.
Yeah, they're already down,
Yeah.
and I think that some of these things. It caused credit cards to lend less money. It caused companies, credit cards, to look at the type of lending they were doing and so forth, and they became more prudent themselves. So
Well said. So there are some tools out there to help us kind of get ahead, right, of the debt and that dark side. Basically, there's that principle of compound interest works in both ways, and that was something that was really presented to me, I don't know, back in 2007. And it was I don't even remember the name of the author, but it just really highlighted how everything that we do, even if we're not even talking about money, right? Everything that we do has the ability to compound on itself. Every choice that we make, sitting down to, I don't know if I'm a student, to study tonight and then the next night, and that knowledge can compound on top of itself. So it's going to go both ways. Every decision that we're making, everything that we're doing, good or bad, is going to work in a compound interest type of an environment for us or against us. And so if you're in a situation where we want a little bit of help, there's some apps out there. Thank goodness for these, like the Debt Snowball, which identifies how long each of your debts, how long you've had each of these debts, and as soon as you pay off one debt, you apply that payment to the next debt, and so on and so forth, and builds kind of like a snowball. And that's something that has been around for a long time.
Sure, and
it's kind of a momentum type of an activity.
Exactly. And we don't necessarily endorse this Debt Snowball app. We're just reading about it. But it may be something that may be interesting for you just to track your debts and to see how you can wipe out your debt faster. And I think what people need is they need a game plan. They need a plan of, okay, here's what I have. Here's the best way in which to pay it off. And there are helpful applications out there that can help with that.
I mean, we were, we don't recommend anything out there. I mean, we were just chatting about this. There's a lot of different apps out there. We don't know the security behind them. We don't know any of those pieces. Check this out. Check something else out. Do your due diligence on what's legitimate. We have our own app that we have with helping people try to understand their income and their debts and their assets, and trying to help pay that down. And we work with people. I mean, that's what planning's all about. It's not just about growing your assets. That's what people have this thing. It's like, hey, here's my retirement assets and I want you to grow them, and this is what we want to do. It's like, no. That's a wealth manager. Okay. And we are wealth managers, but financial planners take the whole picture. They look at your tax concerns. They look at your debt issues. They look at, debt issues could be good or could be bad. You could have good debt. You could have bad debt. You could have college debt. You could have mortgage debt, or you could have credit card debt. And you could be over your head in water, but you still have a sizable 401k at work that you've been putting aside. But managing the entire picture is what financial planning is about. So some people are looking for wealth managers. They're looking for advisors to help them understand their assets and what to do with those assets. And then there are people who say, hey, I really want to fine-tune this. I meet people all the time. Had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were sharing with me how they spent hours and hours just building a budget and writing everything down and, putting it into a spreadsheet and so forth. And, they're not financially struggling per se, but they're trying to be good stewards. And it's kind of interesting because they're not a client. I just know them generally, and they were just chatting about it. And I don't know if they were looking for thoughts or advice or anything, but the conversation didn't morph into anything more than what I just shared. But my thinking is that they don't understand that if that's a concern or question in their life, they really need a planner. Because they probably have, I'm guessing, someone managing their wealth, but having financial plan, having someone interject thoughts and considerations. And with our software, you can download your credit cards, your debit cards. It can actually itemize things right into the categories you can select and put them into and figure out what your mental budget is. What I found, and we've chatted about this, all of us, a number of times, is that people have their mental budget. They know how many times they've gone to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts.
They know they shouldn't be going as much.
Oh, I went 3 times this week. It's just really more than I should spend there. And, whatever the story is, people understand the mental budgets. But when you actually translate and you download that information and you allocate it to different portions, you can create goals for yourself to try to keep the spending lower and increase your savings. And I think that's a healthy game to interject into your life right now. So.
There's a cartoon out there by a guy named Randy Glassbergen where a boy asks his father, "What's a credit card?" And the father answers, "A credit card is what you use when something costs too much and you want to pay more for it." So it's kind of funny, but it's true. But, right now we've talked a little bit about debt, and we've talked about just the danger of debt and the compounding side of debt. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to switch from the dark side over to the power of compound interest when it's going in the right direction.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com.
On today's Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, Seth Krussman sends us a warning. There are no guarantees, and even the best companies who promise to take care of us in our retirement years may not always come through. It's up to us to have a plan in place for our financial future, one that goes above and beyond what we may have been promised.
What's happening in some of the U.S. cities like Detroit, Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, they are claiming bankruptcy. They have pension obligations of $1.23 billion. These are areas, I think, in most of our minds, most of our thinking that we say this is going to be okay. We kind of let down our guard and we think, okay, well, we've done the work. We're trusting these organizations. We're trusting these systems to do what they said they're going to do and to perform. The truth is that we deal with this all the time. We can't say guaranteed here on the air. Like, we can't talk about something and say, well, there's a guarantee that goes with that. There's areas that we try to even work in to try to create some security as well. But these are massive organizations that have just told people that we're going to take care of you. And you know what? It's lulled people to sleep. A generation of people that are being lulled to sleep with guarantees. I mean, it makes me angry. It does make me angry and upsets me to find out that these people are ultimately lied to. And how do they recover when they're 65 years old and go from $45,000 a year of what was considered guaranteed income the rest of their life down to, $18,000, $25,000? How do you do that?
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Seth, Ben, and John.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Also appreciate you if you're trying to find out more information about Money on Tap and some of the concepts that we've rolled out. You can find us at www.yourmoneyontap.com, and we've got a lot of our past shows that we've rolled out, and you can dive into those, pick up wherever you want, or just give us a call at 855-226-8551. If it's a concept that we use here, we're going to go ahead and give you some free stuff that's pretty cool too. We're talking about the power of compound interest, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think we were going to kind of start talking a little bit. We talked about the dark side here. We're going to talk.
John shared a lot about the dark side, something he's got a lot of familiarity
We're going to talk about the good side.
I think we should have like a little Darth Vader, Seth. Maybe you should.
This is the Oreo cookie, right?
I am so not a Darth Vader fan. I use, you're not a Star Trek guy, are you? Or whatever
You
it
don't
is.
even
Star
know
Trek.
what the
I
show
don't
is.
care about all that
Oh,
stuff.
my goodness. John's
So,
like, we only deal with
Star
real
Trek.
guns in Rhode Island. We don't deal with that fake stuff.
All right, so talking about the power of compound interest on the positive side, what we often tell people is the best time to start investing is today if you have not made a plan. Let me tell you something. If you are under 35 and you're listening to us right now, you have actually one of the biggest advantages out there when it comes to planning for eventual financial freedom. And how much you can put away per month is important, but as the numbers that we're going to talk about below show, that number pales in comparison to how much time you can invest in your plan. In other words, the sooner that you start, the greater advantage you're going to have. And if you don't believe it, let's just talk this kind of about a program or just a fictional story here that talks about 3 different investors. And in full and fair disclosure here, let's just be upfront and transparent. We're just talking about some returns here that are totally hypothetical. So we're not talking about where you can get this return or we've gotten this return or whatever, but the data really doesn't lie when it comes to just what would happen if you got like a fixed rate of return. So I'm going to just bring up one. I want you to read through Michael. Ben, go ahead.
Okay, so Michael, who would have let's pretend Michael would be my client.
Okay.
So Michael, who put $1,000 away per month from when he turned 25 till age 35.
10 years.
10 years. So $12,000 a year for 10 years and then totally stops. He invests with Ben.
Yeah.
And he waits till he's age 65 and retires. That's my guy.
Okay, and he got 7%, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jennifer's your gal. Tell us about that, Seth.
Well, Jennifer held off and didn't start saving until age 35. Put away $1,000 a month in her from her 35th birthday until she turned 45, so 10 years there. Like Michael, she left the balance in her investment account where it continued to accrue at a rate of 7% until age 65. So
Okay.
we're gonna move that timeline 10 years down the road.
All right, now, my guy is Sam. Sam has spent the last 25 years in his parents' basement playing Nintendo and who knows what. Well, it was Nintendo when it started. Now it's PlayStation. It just moved right up.
Okay, so when I started, it was
Blip.
Atari, baby.
It's Atari.
It was
Okay.
Atari. Little Pong.
So Sam was so busy playing computer games that he didn't even bother to get around investing until he actually moved out of his parents' basement when he was 45. He invested $1,000 per month for 10 years, halting his savings at age 55. Then he also left his money to accrue at 7% rate until his 65th birthday. So Michael, Ben's client, Jennifer, Seth's client, and Sam, my client, each saved the same amount, $120,000 over a 10-year time period.
So Sam he worked an illegitimate job in Rhode Island.
Yes,
making
yes, I'm
money
sure
under
he
the
was.
table, John.
I'm sure he was.
And then he came out of the woodwork and said, I'm gonna work for real.
I don't know if he was even working. That's the thing. I don't even know if he's even working at all. So sadly for Jennifer, for Seth's client, and even more so for Sam, their ending balances were dramatically different. So let me just tell you.
What does it mean about my client?
Well, here's what it means about your client. Your client, Ben, had $1,444,969 because he started saving at the ripe young age of 25. Now, Jennifer, she was not so great, but she had $734,549, and my guy Sam only had $373,407 when he saved the exact same amount of money. So, starting early makes a big difference. Now, how on earth? We talk about we talk about these guys saving $1,000 per month.
Well, I think if you look at everyone putting away the same $120,000 at a 7% rate, and you just base it on age span differences and so forth, when you really break down the lowest to the highest, asset value here at the end of the day at 65, you're looking at. So Sam, who had $373,000 versus Michael, who had $1.4 million, it's actually just a hair over a 25%, difference. So, meaning that Sam only retained 25% of what actually Michael did, putting the same money away and just allowing the money to sit there. So what did Michael do for the rest of his life? I think that's the opening statement, because it doesn't matter whether you put $1,000 away here or you put $100 away here. The point is put something away here
and put it somewhere
and start immediately.
Yeah, exactly. So if your employer offers you a 401k, 403b, or some other type of tax advantage plan, maybe that's a good place to start. That means you won't pay income taxes on your retirement savings, which is a real positive thing, until you take the money out in your retirement. And, we've done a lot of tax shows where we talk about how it's going to be costing you more later on when it comes to tax issues. But you know what, Ben? I know a lot of people who have said, hey, I'm not going to put it away into my plan because I don't want to pay the taxes or I don't want to pay the expenses on the fees when I'm investing in my 401k or whatever. And as a result, they do nothing. They do nothing. And so that's the biggest problem.
I mean, just the other day, John, we met with some people, wonderful people and so forth, and we're talking to them about assets that are not doing anything for them. Mm-hmm. And, it was a considerable amount of their assets, and they're like, well, we need more money and so forth. And I mean, it's like they came in to invest those dollars, and, 3 meetings later, they're still like, well, I don't know if I want to invest.
Yeah, a lot of times people that have done a good job of savings and they kind of have that depression mindset, meaning that they're very, very scared of the markets. And we understand that. We see that kind of stuff every single day, especially after we see some big market declines. But right now, these folks have a lot of money sitting on the sidelines, and they know that maybe things are going fine right now, but they know when we look at projections and how things are going to go with them, maybe in 15 years, they're going to have a lot less money. So they need to have that money working for them.
And they said they've been talking about investing these dollars for years.
Yeah.
And then at the end of our meeting, after we did some work for them and kind of, restructured some stuff and kind of enhanced their situation, what was interesting is that they were like, well, the whole thing that they came in for, they're like, well, next time we meet, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And we're going to go to Florida for 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so we're not investing those dollars. I mean, I was just like, it was like a moment of like, whoa, what's going on here, So
I think the biggest thing when it comes to this kind of stuff, Seth, is the fact that people need to sometimes get out of what their comfort zone is and realize that sometimes they need to follow some advice as far as, and that's kind of why they're here, to be able to get some good advice and to take action on it. And sometimes people do, sometimes people don't. But our job is to help kind of push them or nudge them in the right direction.
Yeah, and I mean, this wasn't like $5,000 or $10,000. I mean, this was a
considerable sum.
Yeah, it was over $100,000 in cash around, and we're like, that's
it's so funny too. Our first question is this: well, when's the last time you wrote a check for $25,000? And you know what? They could never tell us the time they wrote a check for $25,000. This guy had a roof they had done for $10,000. But when you think about it, they're 70 years old. They have no mortgage. You have no car payments. You have no liabilities out there. Which I have to say, congratulations to them for doing a great job of savings. But at the same time, there's so much money in what we call an idle asset. That idle asset is cash sitting around doing nothing.
It's burning backwards against inflation, and one spouse more interested in investing versus the other, and that's a balance and something we want to work with and we want to be sensitive to. But sometimes it's beyond any fear or concern for cash. You just become too comfortable in your space, and we try to help people see where they need to make those adjustments and where they need to, understand that stuff. And they know they need to. It's funny because they said, yes, we know we need to do something.
Right.
And we've always
just not
known.
Now.
Yeah. we just don't want to do it.
We've been talking to a demographic here that is, for the most part, the Gen Xers and the baby boomers. And I mean, for the most part, that's the majority of the people. That's the majority of the clients that we just have at Brayshaw Financial Group, just kind of by nature of what we do and kind of timeline of, building assets and having families and trying to construct their lives. That's mostly where we as planners fit in. But I want to just sidestep that a little bit and talk a little bit to the Michael of our group that's maybe at that age 25, more of the.
You mean my client?
Yeah, Ben's client, Michael.
My client, yeah.
Yeah, Ben's client, yes. That really has that opportunity of time, or even the Jennifer, that 25 to 35 kind of a window. And now, as a whole, the majority of the people of your generation are not at all interested in the market, are not really looking to get their money into places that have anything less secure than a CD. And one of the things that we can kind of take away here is hopefully looking at a Michael, looking at a Jennifer, and those types of scenarios and that timeline that there is out there is, there might be a bit of a roller coaster sometimes involved with the market, but having the ability to recover over time or to diversify yourself, to maybe, yes, have those assets in places where they may not be, earning as much, maybe a little bit more security around those, but also kind of layering some of those assets so that you can start to look at those options as you move on through, your career and your timeline as a younger investor and aging more towards something that nest egg can grow towards. So I mean, that's the whole thing I just wanted to say right there is that in that demographic, there's some ways that we can help to alleviate some of those struggles that you have mentally, those hurdles that you have of trying to get involved in a way that participates in a meaningful way, not just keeping up with inflation. Well,
as I kind of think through these different scenarios, and I mean, these are just snapshots, right? We're talking about 10-year snapshots on each one of these people. There's other investments that, we talk about the 401k. We talk about, just putting in a savings account here for 10 years. You get the home, you get your house, which usually ends up being your largest asset, and so forth. So there's a lot of different pieces that move here. So what I would do is, if you're listening to this show today and you're saying, boy, I could never put $1,000 away. I'm thinking, John, about a young couple that came into our office a little while ago. And I was so impressed with their financial controls.
Yeah.
More so than I had been impressed in a really long time.
It didn't make great salaries. I mean, they weren't real high salaries, but combined, they were doing okay. But they had the ability to really put a lot away.
Normally, people walk in and I don't think twice about anything. But sometimes people really they impress me, and I was just really impressed by their control mechanisms around their finances, their engaging in savings that they were doing and how they were doing it. But if you're listening to this show today, a couple of takeaways that you could probably look at, right? Are you saving $1,000 a month? Are you doing that? Well, the question is I would actually challenge you to look at, hey, how much is your principal pay down in your house? Because that's a kind of a form in my mind of savings towards that $1,000. Like if you're putting $200 or $300 or $500 a month down against your principal, I would say, well, check that box there. And if you're, putting some money into your 401k every month, I would check that box too. And then whatever you're not doing around that $1,000 between those two, maybe there's a little bit more you need to reach into, because it's not necessarily just going to be a straight cash item. Because some people might be listening and saying, I just can't do that.
Right. Because I'm doing so many other things, right?
Yeah. Or the house we're putting was way more expensive than we would have normally have ever bought. And it was an opportunity, and we really see it more as an investment or a location. And I can appreciate those things. I have no qualms about, hey, listen, every piece of savings needs to be cash in the stock market or in the bank or something like that. I think there's all sorts of forms. And that's the defining factor, and what makes us different is the three-dimensional investing perspective. It's the idea that, investing in financial health and well-being is defined not just in the stock market, not just in the managed account you have, or an insurance product, or a CD or a savings account. It could be a multifamily that you own. It could be a family business or a small home business you have. All these things are investments to a greater plan.
There certainly are different paths out there, and there's not one right path for anyone. And we may have paths that we help advise people on, but there's other people that do very, very well in their way of saving for the future. There's an article out there by a guy named Greg Fisher. Greg Fisher is actually an investment advisor. I believe he's out in the California area. But I thought it was pretty interesting that he used a hypothetical example from his own lifetime to illustrate maybe how we can just all perhaps learn to save a little bit more in areas that we didn't think so. But let me just read this to you here. It says, I'll use a hypothetical example from my own lifetime to illustrate this. When I was born in October 1970, which is interesting because my birthday is November 1970. But he says, my father drove me home from the hospital in a brand new Pontiac Catalina, his first car. Let's now imagine that instead of splashing out $5,000 for a fancy Catalina, my dad had spent only $4,000 for a more modest vehicle. And let's assume that my parents had taken that $1,000 that they saved on the car, $5,000 in today's dollars after adjusting for inflation, and invested that money that month for my future in an actual diversified global stock fund. Then suppose each month thereafter they added $100, equivalent to $500 in today's money, to the global stock fund. And the author says this: how much would my account be worth 43 years later on September 30th, 2013. Would you believe he writes $1.57 million? And if my parents had stretched a little and invested $125 a month instead of $100, the value of that same account would have grown to $1.93 million. And just interesting talking about the power of compounding. And of course, we're not saying that you can be guaranteed this rate of return or that we have an investment that does that rate of return, but it's very interesting to see that the value, and he was just plugging some numbers into a stock fund, that the value would have been 12.18%, or the value compounded would have compound annualized at 12.18%. I thought it was just interesting about the power of saving on a regular basis. And I would encourage each one of our listeners to pay attention to those different areas where they can perhaps save a little bit on money that they're spending, maybe they don't need to spend on other things.
It even comes down to, John, you go into, it's like you go into Best Buy and you're like, oh, do I, that TV looks really good. I like, the idea of a TV, because TVs are like 48-inch, 54-inch, or 32-inch.
I would like to watch the Super Bowl on the 11-inch screen.
Yeah.
That's what I would like.
But those are, saving $100 a month could just be every decision just not going to the extreme. Not going all the way out. So if you're looking at a 54 and that's really what you're thinking, what's a 48 going to do? Is it going to show that much less screen and that less wow? Those are really questions you really want to ask yourself. And maybe the TV is something you really want to do, right? But it might be another area of your life maybe doesn't matter as much. And that's the challenge you have to give yourself. I think that's the personal management side, and trying to control those areas, because our society, pushes so hard for the best, the next, you got to have this, you got to have that, and all those different pieces.
I think Seth made a very, very good point, and we'll let Seth wrap it up here in just a minute, but I think Seth made a very good point in the beginning. Every decision you make is kind of compounding. So if you keep on making poor decisions when it comes to just about anything, when it comes to your money, to your health, to your exercise, every poor decision you make compounds itself. And on the flip side of it, when you start making good decisions when it comes to your money, to your health, to your relationships, all of those things compound in a positive way as well. So
I couldn't have said that any better myself, John. And you can take that for data. This has been Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. We've been talking about the power of compound interest, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And folks, if you're looking to sit down with an advisor and start making some of the right steps towards your financial goals, we welcome the opportunity to do that with you. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. That's going to be a wrap. Thanks a lot, you guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Same here.
See ya.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.